Jenny Maxwell was having the kind of night that should have ended with ice cream and bad reality TV. Instead, it ended with a tractor beam and a spaceship. 1 minute she was trudging home from her shift at Burger Bonanza, smelling like fryer oil and regret. The next she was floating upward like a French fry to heaven. "You have got to be kidding me," she muttered as the blue light enveloped her. "I don't even get abducted on a good hair day." The aliens, as it turned out, were called Vraxians. They looked like someone had crossbred a lobster with a bodybuilder and then dressed the result in what appeared to be ceremonial battle speedos. Their ship smelled like a combination of gym socks and cinnamon. "The specimen has awakened," announced a Vraxian with particularly impressive head ridges. Jenny later learned this was Captain Kreldax, collector of worthy combatants and apparent subscriber to the only speaking in capital letters school of communication. "The specimen would like to know what the hell is going on," Jenny replied, struggling against her restraints. "Also, the specimen has a name. It's Jenny." Jenny Kreldax tested the name like it was an exotic food he wasn't sure about. "You will bring honor to your species in the Grand Vraxian arena." "Yeah, about that. My species is more into Netflix and avoiding phone calls than arena combat." "You've made a huge mistake." Kreldax's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. "Humans. Always with the humor before death." Jenny was escorted to a holding cell where other aliens were kept. Some had tentacles. Some had exoskeletons. All looked at her with what she interpreted as pity, though it was hard to read expressions on beings with compound eyes and mandibles. "Oh great," said a hovering cloud of gas with eyes. "They got themselves a human. This'll be over quick." "I'm right here," Jenny said, raising her hand. "And I'm not loving this whole humans are arena cannon fodder vibe everyone's giving off." A blue crystalline being in the corner chimed like wind bells. "They say humans are fragile. No armor. No claws. No venom sacs. Just squishy. We also have Netflix and air fryers, but I don't see anyone appreciating those evolutionary advantages," Jenny muttered, already planning how to survive whatever fresh hell awaited her. Jenny's cell was shared with 3 other beings who, under different circumstances, might have warranted a strongly worded letter to her landlord about the pest situation. But here they were her only allies. Krez resembled a 4-armed blue gorilla with metallic scales instead of fur. He was an engineer from a high-gravity planet called Durdur. 3 times Earth gravity, he explained, casually bending what looked like a steel bar. "Makes us sturdy." "Makes you show-offs," Jenny replied, but there was no malice in it. She'd need friends here. Lumi was harder to describe. Essentially humanoid but translucent, with glowing organs visible through her skin that changed colors based on her emotions. Currently, they were pulsing a nervous yellow. "I was a diplomat," she said, her voice like someone speaking through a flute. Apparently telling the Vraxian Emperor his head ridges looked charmingly modest is a grave insult. The third cellmate was Gorks, who took up half the available space. Resembling a cross between a rhinoceros and a caterpillar, Gorks communicated through color patterns that rippled across his 20-foot length. Kraz translated the patterns. "Gork says not to worry. You'll die quickly. Minimal suffering. Tell Gorks I appreciate his optimism, but I'm planning on the whole not dying option." Kraz's 4 arms performed what appeared to be the universal gesture for, "Yeah, good luck with that," before he explained the Vraxian arena system. The Vraxians believe combat is the only true measure of worth. Their entire society is structured around their arena games. Politics, religion, even marriage, all decided through ritual combat. "So it's like Twitter, but with actual bloodshed," Jenny nodded. "The current champion is Commander Droll," Lumi added, her organs shifting to a worried purple. 27 consecutive victories. They say he's collected a trophy from each opponent." "What kind of trophy?" Jenny asked, immediately regretting it. "Whatever body part he finds most interesting," Kraz said casually. as if discussing a stamp collection. That night, Jenny listened to the other prisoners discussing her chances in hushed tones. "Humans don't even have redundant organs," Lumi whispered. "Or proper exoskeletons," added Kraz. Gorks flashed a sympathetic mauve pattern that Kraz refused to translate. Jenny stared at the ceiling of her cell, wondering if Burger Bonanza had already replaced her for tomorrow's shift. "At least I don't have to worry about next month's student loan payment," she muttered to herself. Silver linings. Training for the arena was apparently mandatory, even for those expected to become decorative smears on the combat floor. Jenny was escorted to a massive gymnasium-like space where various captives practiced with weapons or honed innate lethal abilities. Her assigned trainer was Morg, a Vraxian warrior whose left eye had been replaced with what looked suspiciously like a Swiss Army knife. "Human," Morg bellowed, circling Jenny. "You have no poison glands, no natural armor, no enhanced strength. What do you have?" "Student debt and a concerning caffeine dependency." Morg was not amused. He tossed her a weapon that resembled a cross between a mace and a tennis racket. "Show me your natural combat stance." Jenny awkwardly held the weapon, adopting what she remembered from one kickboxing class she'd taken at the community center before quitting. Morg's mandibles clicked in what she now recognized as Vraxian laughter. "This is pitiful. Perhaps you have hidden abilities? Sonic projection? Explosive flatulence?" "Look, the most violent thing I've done is rage quit a video game," Jenny admitted. But as training progressed, something unexpected happened. While Jenny lacked the natural weapons of the others, she discovered she had advantages that shocked the aliens. "You can operate with only one respiratory rest cycle per planetary rotation?" Morg asked, incredulous when Jenny explained human sleep patterns. "And we can run for hours without stopping," Jenny added, demonstrating endurance that left her extraterrestrial companions baffled. "Your species consumes capsaicin for pleasure?" Morg looked horrified when Jenny explained spicy food. "The chemical weapon?" During one training session, a Vraxian guard named Vex approached her. Unlike the others, Vex spoke quietly and wore non-regulation accessories, tiny trinkets from different worlds attached to his battle harness. "Human, listen carefully," Vex whispered, mandibles barely moving. "The arena isn't just about strength. It's about the show, the ritual. Vraxians follow combat protocols that are thousands of years old. So there are rules. Rules I could potentially exploit?" Vex's compound eyes darted around nervously. "The pre-combat oration is sacred. The posturing of anticipated victory is mandatory. And most importantly, the selection of battle approach cannot be challenged once declared." Jenny smiled for the first time since her abduction. "Tell me more about these rituals, Vex. Tell me everything." The selection ceremony for arena combatants resembled nothing so much as a macabre game show, complete with dramatic lighting and an audience of chittering Vraxians. Jenny stood in line with other prisoners as Commander Droll, the arena champion, strutted before them. Droll was massive even for a Vraxian, standing nearly 8 feet tall. Various trophies, bones, scales, what appeared to be tentacles preserved in resin adorned his battle harness. His head ridges were so pronounced they formed what looked like a natural crown. "I seek a worthy opponent," he announced to the crowd's wild approval. One by one he passed by potential combatants, assessing them with theatrical disdain. When he reached Jenny, he paused, mandibles clicking rapidly. This is the human specimen?" He circled Jenny like she was a questionable buffet item. "They come from a death world, yet this one appears particularly underwhelming." "Death world," Jenny whispered to Kraz, who stood nearby. "Earth's classification," Kraz muttered. "High gravity, caustic oxygen atmosphere, extreme temperature variations, solar radiation. Vraxians think any species surviving there must be formidable. They'll be especially disappointed when you're instantly killed. Droll completed his performance by pointing dramatically at Jenny. I select the human. Let us see what creatures from this fabled death world can offer. The crowd roared. Jenny felt her stomach drop. Back in the cell, preparations reached fever pitch. You must wear this, Lumi insisted, offering a piece of her own translucent skin that had molted off. It deflects energy weapons. And take this, Kraz pressed a small mechanical device into her palm. If things get truly desperate, press here. It emits a high-frequency pulse that might disorient Vraxian sensory ridges. Even Gorks contributed, secreting a foul-smelling liquid that crystallized into what Kraz explained was armor hardener. Thanks, but I've got something else in mind, Jenny said, pulling them into a huddle. Vex told me about these combat rituals, and I think I found our loophole. She explained her plan in whispers. Kraz's forearms gestured wildly. That's insane. It's never been done. Precisely why it might work, Jenny replied. Now, tell me exactly how to formally declare my battle approach. That night, unable to sleep, Jenny sat with her cellmates sharing stories of their worlds. If these were to be her final hours, at least she'd spend them learning about the universe she'd never get to explore. On my world, Lumi said, glowing a nostalgic blue, we communicate through light patterns and chemical emissions. Our poetry can last decades as molecules drift through our atmosphere. On Earth we have TikTok, Jenny replied. Similar concept, shorter shelf life. The arena was a massive circular pit surrounded by tiered seating filled with thousands of chittering Vraxians. The floor was stained with the various bodily fluids of dozens of species. Overhead, floating drones broadcast the spectacle to the Vraxian Empire. And now, boomed an announcer, the moment of glorious combat approaches. Jenny was led out wearing only her Burger Bonanza uniform and a ceremonial Vraxian combat sash that kept slipping off her shoulder. The crowd's reaction was mixed. Some cheered at the novelty of a human, others clicked their mandibles dismissively at her unimpressive appearance. From the opposite entrance came Commander Droll, adorned in full battle regalia. His exoskeleton had been polished to a gleaming crimson, and additional trophies had been affixed to his armor. He carried a weapon that looked like someone had crossbred a chainsaw with a lobster claw. Behold! Droll bellowed, raising his arms to the crowd's adoration. I shall add a human specimen to my collection. Perhaps there are strange external sound receptors? He pointed to Jenny's ears. The announcer lowered himself on a hovering platform. Combatants, you will now perform the sacred pre-combat oration. This was the moment Jenny had prepared for. According to Vex, the pre-combat oration was an ancient ritual where each fighter declared their approach to battle, binding them to that strategy by sacred Vraxian law. Droll went first naturally. I, Commander Droll, declare the approach of overwhelming might. I shall crush the human with superior Vraxian strength and weaponry, as is proper. The crowd roared in approval. The announcer turned to Jenny expectantly. Jenny stepped forward, reciting the words Vex had taught her in perfect Vraxian phonetics. I, Jenny Maxwell of Earth, declare the approach of intellectual combat. A confused silence fell over the arena. The announcer's mandibles clicked rapidly in what appeared to be confusion. He conferred with officials at the side of the arena before returning. The human has declared a legitimate ancient combat approach. By our sacred laws, the challenge must proceed as declared. Droll's compound eyes widened. What trickery is this? Intellectual combat? Jenny smiled sweetly. According to your own rules, we now engage in combat of the mind. I propose a series of paradoxes and logical problems. First combatant unable to respond loses. What followed was perhaps the most unusual match in Vraxian arena history. Instead of physical combat, Jenny began posing philosophical paradoxes and logical puzzles that she'd learned in her Philosophy 101 class. If a starship travels at light speed and turns on its headlights, what happens to the light? She asked innocently. Droll, trained for physical combat but bound by sacred tradition to respond, struggled visibly. The light would. If a Vraxian says I am lying, is he telling the truth or a lie? Jenny continued mercilessly. The crowd watched in fascinated horror as their champion's mandibles worked furiously, trying to process these concepts. Some Vraxians in the audience began clutching their head ridges in sympathetic distress. Here's another one, Jenny said, circling her increasingly distressed opponent. This statement is false. Is it true or false? Droll's exoskeleton began to take on a concerning bluish tint. The statement cannot be true because it says it is false. But if it is false, then it must be true. But if it is true. With a sound like a dying vacuum cleaner, Commander Droll collapsed to the arena floor, mandibles twitching spasmodically. The arena fell completely silent. The human has defeated Commander Droll through legitimate intellectual combat. The announcer finally declared, sounding both horrified and impressed. The crowd erupted, not in anger as Jenny had feared, but in fascination. She had unwittingly tapped into the Vraxian's obsession with combat innovation. By the time she was escorted back to her cell, word had spread throughout the ship. The human had defeated their champion not through strength or speed or natural weapons, but through paradoxes. Captain Kreldax himself visited her cell, mandibles clicking in what might have been respect. The human female has brought honor to her death world. As arena champion, she may claim one reward. I want my freedom, Jenny said immediately, and that of my cellmates. Kreldax's head ridges darkened the Vraxian equivalent of a frown. Freedom is not a standard reward. Perhaps a ceremonial weapon? A severed body part of your opponent? Actually, Jenny said, thinking quickly, in human combat tradition, the victor traditionally receives what we call a victory vessel for interstellar travel. It's how we honor our champions. Kraz, catching on immediately, nodded vigorously. Oh yes, the famous human victory vessels. Very traditional. Very honorable. After much mandible-clicking deliberation, the Vraxians agreed to provide what amounted to a small, outdated cargo shuttle. For the honor of Vraxian combat tradition, Kreldax declared, clearly still confused but unwilling to appear ignorant of apparent universal customs. As they prepared to board their victory vessel, Vex approached Jenny one last time. You have changed things here, the guard said quietly. Some young warriors are now studying philosophical texts alongside combat techniques. They're calling it the Maxwell approach. Tell them to start with Descartes, Jenny replied with a grin. He's a real mind-blower. Once aboard, Kraz immediately began modifying the ship's systems. This engine is prehistoric, but I can make it work. Where shall we go? Anywhere that doesn't have mandatory combat rituals, Jenny suggested. Lumi's organs glowed an excited pink. I have diplomatic contacts in the Andromeda Alliance. They might offer us sanctuary. Gorks flashed a complex pattern across his massive form. Gork says he knows where we can trade this ship for something less conspicuous, Kraz translated. Also, he's hungry. As the stolen shuttle broke orbit, Jenny looked back at the Vraxian battleship growing smaller behind them. She would miss her apartment, her friends, and even her job at Burger Bonanza. But as she turned to her new companions, a four-armed engineer, a glowing diplomat, and a color-changing space caterpillar, she couldn't help but smile. So, she said, settling into the captain's chair that was clearly designed for someone with an exoskeleton and significantly more limbs who wants to learn about human culture. I should warn you, it largely revolves around arguing about pizza toppings and pretending we've read books we haven't. As the ship accelerated toward the stars, Carrying the unlikely crew to whatever adventure awaited them next, Jenny realized something important. She would never have to work another shift at Burger Bonanza again. Some abductions, it seemed, had their perks.